Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden things just started moving. So I started recording, but
Yeah.
just a lot of things that I've been working on for like some years. It's like everything's finally kind of going ba-bam, 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 and doors are opening, So it's just got to hold on, I think. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, this is
Okay.
Jannie, Vaught, and Bridgette Dolgoff, and we are doing a pre-record, and we're going to put this on YouTube and a lot of other places. But the topic that we're going to be discussing today is going to be preparing for spring. And Jannie and I just love to get together and mind meld. So we're just going to do that like we do on the telephone. So you're going to get some of that. So we're going to
totally. Yeah.
talk about a lot of stuff for spring and from biodynamic and the 501 prep, and Janie's going to be putting in permaculture stuff and like what to do and food forests and saving trees and whatever else that she wants to discuss. Jannie, do you have a spring prayer? Is there any in your repertoire of prayers? Do you have a spring prayer?
Well, yeah, of course. It is a time of course, in the winter in many cultures, you did not dig in the earth. She was asleep. You did not penetrate the skin of the earth. You let her sleep. But as you know, the earth doesn't go by our calendars or our clocks. But as soon as you saw the sun shifting and more light came in, then you could get active with doing any kind of digging. So it was always a gift would be, I've been burning a lot of actually incense and sage and just going out and meeting the rising sun and saying thank you in whatever way is appropriate for you. Whatever you feel, it could be a number of prayers. It's just about gratitude. For us, it's just been about gratitude getting through a very cold winter. We're still having a lot of cold winters, cold times, and that our animals came through and most of our garden came through and the trees are planted. And so there's a lot of just gratitude and making a commitment. I always make a commitment to the earth about my next season. And I write it down actually in a journal, and I have lists and I check them off, and I don't always get to all of them, but I do. So would you like to start with a prayer?
Yeah. Do you have a spring prayer? Do you have any in your...
Well, it would be grandfather and grandmother to all my relations. Today, okay. I thank you. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
We're in.
Yeah. We're in. Yeah.
Yeah, because you need those grandmothers. You want to grow some stuff,
Yeah.
And care
for
the grandmothers, because they know everything. They're the
well, in our traditions, the winds and the cold were mainly the grandfathers, and the earth is the grandmothers, and the growing, and it's just the dichotomy of male and female, and it's all good. We have to acknowledge everything. We can't leave anybody out. Even our blessed weeds and the ants who show up that we don't particularly like, the biting ones. Anyway, they showed up. So it tells me that the soils are waking. The energy within the earth and the skin of the earth is waking when the ants start piling up their piles and coming out of the top of the soil. So it's good. Yeah, I got buzzed by a hummingbird. Yeah, I got buzzed by a hummingbird, and the redbirds are singing. The redbirds, which are cardinals, started singing a month ago. And when the cardinals start singing, we know the light is returning. And they're actually starting to nest. They're gathering for nest. And the doves and the buntings have shown up. The waxwing buntings, which are a beautiful bird here. And they mainly travel through. But the buntings are coming through and getting the winter berries that are left on the old vines. So they pig out on those things, kind of feed up, and then they like to bathe. So we make sure they have fresh water, and then they all cluster around and bathe and drink and eat the old berries, and then off they go. So to me, that is being a natural gardener and have been rewilding myself. It's taken me a whole lifetime to get myself back into the natural process. That is what I look for and I pay attention to, is what is nature doing around me? What is it telling me? So that is really about preparation. When do I start preparing for, and spring is so close. What is it, March 20th? And everybody has spring fever so bad. They want to be putting tomatoes in the ground.
No, I've been getting emails from people like, what should I do? And should I start, seed sprays? And we're still, we're 4,700 feet elevation underneath the city of Nevada. So we still got a long ways to go. I mean, we'll get it like warm and it'll fake everybody out. Then they'll plant stuff and it'll kill it all.
Right. Or it slows it down. If you go in seeds, even I have some seeds in the ground. And I know it slows them down because they're looking for that 60 degree. That is 55 to 60 is their aha moment. That we're going to start moving.
Serious.
I need that 60 degrees.
Yeah.
I like really am slugging it when it's cold. And it doesn't. I don't want to do that. And then I have so many clothes on, I can't move, and they get real grumbly and grousy, but that's all part of it too. As we, it's like the bear waking up, we're shifting out of those directions. And we've been in the deep north, which is the place we went through the bear and now we're in the north. We're still hanging up with the buffalo and the white in the winter. And sometimes preparation, if you go by the medicine wheel, you realize the north you're preparing for a buffalo hunt. Okay, so when you're in the north, you thank the grandfathers and the buffalo and all the creatures and all those who fly in the air and swim in the sea and walk on the soil and those who live under the soil. There's your gratitude. And so you start preparing and you make your medicine a bag. And that could be a list. That could be stones. That could be herbs. That could be prayers. It could be anything that is important to you, and you start preparing for your buffalo hunt, which would come actually after the calves are born, which happens in spring through the summer. They didn't hunt buffalo until summer to fall, but you start preparing now with gratitude, and you might have a sweat, you might get in and do a fast and detox and get in there in a good sweat. They would get in there and scrub themselves with sage and sand and clean their skin and clean their teeth and drink lots of water. And, and naturally, still us, we're eating our canned goods. We're working on what I had canned previously. And we're working on, beans and soups and things like that. And we start getting hungry for greens. We want the fresh, really lovely. I have a friend that has a greenhouse, and she handed me a tomato that was like as big as a platter from her greenhouse. And we brought it home, and we were just like, oh, look. We actually set it like a ceremony on the counter and looked at it for many days, and we talked about how we were going to eat it, We decided it would be sliced with fresh mozzarella and some dried basil and some, kind of Italian dressing on it. We all stood around, me and my daughters, and really enjoyed this tomato. And that, to me, is a ceremony. That is ceremonial. Everything we need do is ceremonial. It really is. And then we're the higher powers, the gods and the goddesses, every language, again, I keep saying that because we are not just walking one path. We are seeing that as big as humanity is God, there really is a merging of our intentions and how we live and how we worship and honor. So some of the breakthroughs, Bridgette, have been, as I'm gardening, I'm seeing so many different aspects of people. I'm a columnist, and I write, and I also have a little Facebook group, and they come in, and there'll be all kinds of different thoughts that they have that are really from a paradigm that is really not useful anymore, because we have, a lot of people would say, we are shifting up out of third dimension, and the garden and the growing will really show you about growing up out of 3D. Okay, here we go into the weeds, Bridgette.
We're biodynamics. We love the weeds.
A lot of people, you can have this conversation with lots of people and they get it.
Yeah.
Some people, they're not there yet. And
Yeah.
that is, you honor that they're not there yet. And a lot of us have gone into that different transition of consciousness and not living. Well, 3D is very restrictive, and it's very binding, and it's full of laws and regulations and those kind of things. But a lot of us, and it's not that we don't honor that. Yeah, I put a title on my car and I pay my insurance. Yes, I walk in through dimension, but my spirit and my consciousness and how I live daily is very much in a higher realm now. And I can hear. And what happens, a lot of it is you start hearing, like me hearing the birds. And I was out planting beets, and I had a hummingbird almost get tangled in my hair. Here she came, man. She winged me, and it was like, oh, okay. That is, and oh, I'm going to go get you a feeder. I'm going to get you hooked up with some sugar water, give you a little, because the flowers aren't blooming yet. So it really is a consciousness. And even the bees spoke to us yesterday. And as my peach and my almonds getting ready to pop, my early plum is fully, just spectacularly bloomed out, white. And then the peach, the pink is up, and the almonds are getting ready to pop. They smell wonderful. The bees showed up, and they said, we're hungry. We're hungry. We are going to be swarming soon. This is like, they're like buzzing me. I was like, oh, okay, let me get I had an old beehive, got it out the summer night. We cleaned it up, and we just really set them on blocks with some fresh, clean, a couple wax, and then empties, and then some lemongrass, just a dot of lemongrass essential oil. That smells like a queen. And so we have just a small nook, or a small beehive under each fruiting, flowering tree, so that they can come if they want a place to swarm. I'm not looking at honey production. I'm looking at pollinators.
Yeah.
And that is about getting out of 3D. What do we grow for? Are we only doing bees for honey?
Yeah.
Are we seeing the bigger picture?
Yeah, well, in biodynamics, one of the things that we really start to think about, when we come into the springtime, especially because of the spring meeting where we make a certain preparation. But one of the things is the focus is on the bees, and they see them as part of the fire medicine beings, in Steiner's work. Fire, they don't call them beings, they call them like forces, fire sprites or whatever. But you want to attract birds, so you have water baths out, because you want to attract all the pollinators, bees, bats, birds.
Yes, I have a bat house. Yeah.
Butterflies. And so what do I need to get out? Water, always number one thing all those beings need is water. They're super thirsty. They've been slowed down. And then food. What do I have that's natural and available? Not like some toxic ass, corn syrup put in their beehive. That's just
exactly.
Poison. And they can do it themselves.
You take a dish or an old pie pan and put stones in it and fill it up with water so the bees can get in there and drink. And not so they don't drown. You put the stones or pieces of pottery or something in there to lift it up. And even for my bees, I will feed them. And if I don't have some natural, they have some food that you can buy that kind of rolls. I keep it in the freezer. And I'll bring some of that out, and I literally will hang it in a tree or lay it by the beehive, just so they can get a little bit of nourishment, because they need that sugar.
Yeah,
they have their wings going, And if they've depleted their hives and their resources, which is really 3D, it's a negative, and they're always in a negative instead of being, lifted up and their hives are full and dripping. We are now the mediary, if you will, to pay attention. And there we go, here we go. Steiner's work was instrumental in developing permaculture with Bill Mollison. And all these guys were getting together, and first thing they did was stop and pay attention. You have to stop. And that is part of that preparation in that prayer in the morning is stopping, listening, feeling, what's the wind doing? Has the sun moved? I use my neighbor's house, the roof line of her house. And I can tell when the seasons change because deep winter, it's way over here. And wow, all of a sudden, man, it's right across the eastern door. You know, we always use our eastern door, which is our side door of our house. We hardly ever use our north door from years of living in a teepee. You know, the eastern door. And even bees like their door being facing east. They like their entrance to their hive to face east. So that energy of the rising sun coming up. And
well,
once
the bees
listen,
the bees run a 6, what is it, sexagon or hexagon? Is that 6?
Right, the shape of their wax.
Well, all of it. They run that 6
Yeah.
geometric pattern and energy frequency.
Right. Yeah, that's at 369.
Yeah.
Energy. Yes.
And so the bees end up. Yeah. That's why they're always in the negative, because they end up being in the martyr kind of zone.
Yes. Yeah. They are such brilliant workers, and we have not been very kind to them.
No, not at all.
You know, we just, and they keep in service to others, and as their hive, they're in service to others, and their queen. That's what they do. And there was such a great representation for us. How do we live? How do we live? Are we living just for us? How much goods and things I can get? Or are we dispersing? Are we caring? Are we bringing the pollen in for everyone else? And then the pollen comes in for this one, and the drone goes out and he mates with the queen. But everybody's got to get fed and cooled and heated, and they're so brilliant. I even have incorporated mason bees. I have mason bee houses. I've made some, and then I've been given a few, and they are sealed up. They're full. So as soon as the sun, and they're facing south. They're just a block with some holes in it, and they like about 3.5 feet up and face south, and they have been so instrumental in my pollination. And not that my pollinators are really in trouble here, live pretty rurally, but I have seen a reduction in my pollinators, and so that kind of in my I'm not seeing a lot, you know, and I appreciate all butterflies and bees, but occasionally you'll see the moth, the little naughty moth that, you know, lays eggs under your cabbage, you know, the really pretty little white things, you know, and you're like, you know. I have learned to live respectfully without trying to go out and kill everything. Because what I've learned is I can go out and even with water, remove some of them, still let them have a life cycle and do what they need to do, but without them eating my whole plant. And often it's letting my chickens in, and chickens won't even remove them all. They'll just take what they need, and they'll, you know, chickens are busy. They go on and do their thing. So preparation and living consciously is really important, more than vital. Because everybody throws around that word ecology and sustainability. That's how we live. That's nothing new. That is how we are to be. That's how we live on our Mother Earth. And it really is important. It's not a new catchword. And homesteading is like set on fire. I've been a homesteader my whole life. Literally, we are a homestead. In Texas, you can still homestead your home. We are a legitimate homestead act. Not every county can do it, but in the majority of them, and it kind of holds your taxes down and as far as ownership of your property.
Well, when you're caring for that, when you homestead and stuff like that, there's a really positive thing that happens for the whole state of Texas, because you're sending out microorganisms to other areas that are actually helping to fix.
People are even doing homesteading on their balcony.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
It all helps. Well, there's that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Doing microgreens under a light. Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned
to have, 40 acres and a mule.
Exactly. But one of the things that I've learned recently is that for proper, like, say, city development, we have negative carbon, and we have way more negative carbon than we have positive carbon, which harms the earth because it goes up and it's all sooty and it comes down and it lands everywhere. And it also kills the oxygen in the air and stuff like that. But if you have a pasture or an area that has grass that grows naturally, that stays kind of undeveloped, maybe help it a little bit, it actually pulls the negative carbon in and replaces it with positive carbon. So really in city areas, if you have like, you know, you should have several houses that are taken out, and then those whole pieces of land return to like a grassy, more positive way, and it'll help to knock down the carbon where there's major carbon. So the thing is the less we get away from taking care of our own yards in a positive way,
right,
not spraying poisons on them, figuring out how to fertilize them naturally, how to fertilize the trees naturally, how to take care of, you know, bring in the forces. In biodynamics, we talk about bringing in the forces to help fix what's out of balance. So how do I do that? But we need to start taking care of our yards so that we don't decimate, you know, the rest of the topsoil on Earth, and then we don't, and decimate the trees. We can't live without topsoil because we don't have food. We won't have food.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And we can't live without trees, no air.
I call them the Mikey rhizomes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, the web of life. There it is. And a lot of people don't even know. When I do, you know, like back to basics, and I do them at the library and some things once in a while, and I will talk, I said, have you ever put your shovel in the ground, especially in new soil, and you crank it back and you see that white web? That's the Mikey rhizomes. And those are the ones that connect to the tree, to tree, to tree, through the root system, and they talk. They all talk to one another. There's a huge language going on. There's not dead under our feet. It is very much alive, and because that is alive, we are alive. I mean, seriously. And for me, what I see, even in my little small town, we have huge lots here. And but it was made with little skinny, tiny houses were original here because they're only like 300 or 400 square foot. And they made little long plottings for the houses in the town. But people would buy 3 or 4 of them. And so you would put your house on, and then you'd have, like, you know, we have a whole corner. We have if you were in like Phoenix or something, you could sit 6 houses on our property. And we have one 900 square foot old, probably 85, 90-year-old German-made stone home that has dinosaur bones in it.
Wow.
You know, and old pecan trees that are probably 80 years old were planted when the house was made. And so we're very fortunate in that we have large places of land. What I see is still is breaking through, and it really is a generational mindset with the old 3-dimension paradigm, is the mowing. And the constant mowing and mowing and mowing and doing St. Augustine and Bermuda. I fight that. Well, that isn't even from here. Bermuda, hello.
I know. It's an illegal immigrant.
Yes, that's right. Along with Thailand, which God brought here. And as I, you know, people will come over and say, what are you doing over here? And I go, well, I'm making swales. See this swale? This keeps water from running off. Now I have bulbs planted here, and I use grow bags, and I have trees planted, and I have catchment systems with berries and trees. And then we overplant every year with native wildflowers and encouraging the wildflowers. You know, we have amazing wildflowers here in Texas. And we do have to mow occasionally, but we crank that mower up high. And because our city, you know, no one's ever really said anything, but to stay respectful within our community, we want to make sure that what they might consider weeds shouldn't be over 18 inches tall, and we try to take care of them. We do, we call it selective mowing. We like make little passes just so around the edges, can see. But even with permaculture, I farm my edges. They have herbs, they have flowers, and you cannot just go with vegetables. You can't just see vegetables. You're missing the part of the whole dynamic of ornamentals, flowers, fruiting, and bulbs. Bulbs are really, really important too. And we have a huge amount of historical bulbs that are lying in the ground that are just magnificent and hold such a space underground that are just so important. And we have, they call them schoolhouse or oxblood lilies here, and they'll start popping up pretty soon. This is red lilies, and some of them are just brilliant to look at, so delicate. And you're like, what were you? Where you've been living under all this time, just waiting to show your sweet face to us. It really is amazing. So anyway, we have some of my preparation too is acceptance. And I know everybody wants to, how do you cover your trees and stop the frost? Oh God, they flowered. And I went out and I talked to this one peach tree. She's just a magnificent peach. And I mean, literally, even thin the peaches, and I have to prop the limbs. And I will go out and I'm looking at her, and she's starting, the bud bulges are happening. I can see she's starting to wake up. And I would touch her and I would say, sister, can you just wait a little bit? We have these weird cold fronts coming down and swooping across us. Can you just wait a little bit? And I get, I just tell her. And 2 weeks ago, I went out and I did that. And she said, oh no, I cannot wait.
Oh.
I cannot wait. The sun is coming. And I said, okay, I release you from my request. And sometimes we forget that we bind items. We bind things with our words and our actions. And so I said, well, thank you. Thank you for holding off. And you do what you need to do. I am not going to be worried that I won't have enough peaches. You will do exactly what you need to do because you're closer than I am. And my whole goal is to be close enough with the whole actions of nature and the cycles that I can be like that peach tree. I can know, oh no, I can't wait anymore. I can wait some, but I can't wait any longer because I got to go. The go button has happened. And that is getting away from our charts. And that's a big part of preparation. Humans like to have charts, and I have charts, grow charts, and you're in growing zone 8 or 7, or, you have all these growing zones. And what I have found in the last 5 years, and I do use my charts. I stick them up on the wall and I kind of look. And what I have seen is maybe that chart that was made in 1990 by the Ag Extension is not relevant anymore. Those dates are not, those times are not, because of our magnetic shift, whatever has going on with our planet, are not right on anymore. So it comes into being intuitive. Just like me talking to the peach tree, that is an act of intuition and communicating. And a lot of people would never buy into that, and I cannot not buy into that. I cannot. I listen to them. I pay attention. I am observant. And when they say go, it's a go.
That's why I fell in love with biodynamic farming, because I would go to the classes and they would talk about everything kind of in a shamanism way, you know what I mean, about growing food and caring for the plant. I was like, whoa, this,
yes,
I'm in. Yes. Show me how to work with that force, because I'm ready.
Right. Yeah, totally. It is, there is ways, that we do things. There's, if you have, right now, my kale. I have dinosaur kale, and it wintered really good. And I did have to cover it for a while. I have hoops, and I cover it with, I've eliminated all plastic. At one time, it worked for me, but now it doesn't. And so I use burlap. I use great big burlap bags, which I get at my feed store, and they're called wool bags. And for like $10, I get a huge bag of wool. I just cut the side and open it up. And then I use burlap. And the burlap is a natural fiber. It really stops the frost.
So do you make like a duvet and then put the wool
I
inside?
have PVC hoops over. And I have metal I can pound in. I take the PVC and it's a hoop. They're already big.
Right, yeah. But what are you doing to cover it?
I have a great big tub that I keep all my burlap folded up. Then I take it out. And some I've even hand sewn together, depending on if I wanted to make it really big. I just sit there and sew it together. And then I just, summer will get on one side and I get in the other. And we just drape this burlap over and rock down the edges and walk away.
And it has wool in it? Or do you add wool?
No, do you know what? It's a plant fiber. I'm not really. I need to see what burlap is made. I would say probably years ago, it probably had a large hemp content in it.
Yeah. You could probably buy
a really good friend of mine, her grandfather was a farmer here in Tyler, Texas, and he got fined for not growing hemp one year.
Whoa. What year was that? Like 1800s?
No, it was a grandfather. So it was
in like early 1900s?
Probably in the 50s. No, they were still growing hemp. And it's not hemp as in cannabis.
Yeah. No.
Hemp, fiber hemp. Yeah. You'd have to smoke, a bushel load of that. You can never get a buzz off that. There's no THC in it. But as a fiber, they were required on their homesteads to grow so much fiber.
Yeah. Well, everything in the U.S. Yeah. I mean, the thing is I think Kentucky passed a law to help their farmers grow industrial hemp production, but the federal government still keeps messing around. But it's been a while. But they, everything that we had, that the United States was kind of founded on for, all rope, including the sailboats and right. Any rope that was used, a lot of like handles and the Declaration of Independence was actually written on hemp paper. So the major people that came over here were to hemp farm and create, all kinds of amazing products. And I'm pretty sure that the first car was the parts of it were hemp, were made out of some kind of plasticized hemp that was made. I mean, plasticized is probably the wrong word, but some kind of natural.
From some form.
Yeah. So, but the sad thing is in the United States is it seems like, every time we turn around, they're changing the agricultural laws and keeping us more and more away from agriculture. I mean, I think that the subsidy right now from the federal government, hopefully Trump will knock that down, is $9 billion a year that they give away to farmers not to grow.
Right, exactly.
Or, grow Monsanto's, which is really bad news. It's just.
Right. I can only speak from the, I grew up in Central California. Well, I was born there and grew up in Southern California, and my family were farmers there. And they didn't get a lot of subsidies. I don't remember ever getting a subsidy. I know, my uncle started out with mules, because they were Cherokee that came on the trail, and they got a relocation to Central California. And as farmers, they got so much farmland, and they came in and they started cotton. And then grapes became very popular, and watermelons, things like that. And they were kind of field crops, and they'd have a thing on the side of the road, sell. And then they grew and got more into growing vineyards. And it just was very, now it's gone to nut production. They're still doing grapes and growing for wine and different things, but a lot of nut production, almonds and pistachios. But here in Texas, there is this, and it's been going on for a long time, because we have, the big universities here. And there are ranchers and farmers who came up against the bottom line. And now they're seeing that they can grow. The demand for organic cotton is tremendous. And there's young families now switching over to growing organic cotton. And then one of the practices I do is I grow white icicle radishes, or any kind of a big long radish in the winter. In the fall, I'll plant them. And I mean, they break through the soil. And it's that whole no-till. So these ranchers, what they're doing is they're planting major fields of daikon radish, okay? And they will turn their cows in. Once they're up and they've got greens on them, those cows come in and they paw, and they dig, and they eat those radishes. There's their plowing, their manure, their urine, everything going on, just what they need. And they'll even harvest some and sell and have some for the family. That was on the front page last year of the Farm Bureau. And more, I mean, major organic growers here, really big organic growers. And permaculture is just like going crazy. It's awesome, you know. And it's the new generation and the old ones too, it's really about, what do I have around me? What can I use?
Yeah, that's really sustainability.
My preparation is, I don't want to have to haul in too much.
Yeah.
You know, I want to, and it's taken me many years to get to that point. Our chickens make our compost. In fact, we probably did 15 loads of wet straw. I bust straw and hay out in there. They have a large pen, and they scratch and peck and poop and pee and do what, you know, they're my composters. And then we had this big rain, and it was getting a little funky. So we got out there and with wheelbarrows and rakes and cleaned and pruned also. And I got mountains of compost that will sit for 2 to 3 weeks that are just amazing. So made here, grown here. The hay is grown here from local people. And do I go into a freak out if I'm not certified organic? No, I don't. I know my neighbors. I know what they're growing. I know what they're doing. I'm questionable about things that are coming in from out of state, because there has been some broadleaf herbicides that came through some horses and that got kind of into some compost. And that stays 7 years. It goes to the horse, and it'll stay as a broadleaf herbicide for 7 years.
Yeah.
But when I go and even if I go out to the event center where they do ropings and horses, there's piles of horse poo for free.
Yeah.
I stand there and I go, for the higher good of me, let me go, lead me to the right pile. And they'll go, right here. That's my intuition. And I just follow it. And I've never had never a problem.
Yeah.
Could it happen? Yeah, it could. I mean, I could get an herbicide. Am I going to, freak out about it? I know nature is big. And I'm not going to do without either. And when I worked in cancer treatment, through alternative treatment, through Dr. Kelly's training, I would tell people, I know buying completely organic and the supplements, you'll have to go take out a loan.
Yeah, serious.
Here's what we do. We do the best we can, right? We absolutely do the best we can with what we have in our hands at that moment. And that is I have built up, I get rid of no leaves. In fact, my leaves are now composting down. I don't rake leaves. I might do a few little piles if I want leaves, so I can put them in a ring composter and throw some manure on them and let them do that. But the trees, everything needs their own leaves. They need that nitrogen and that magnesium, zinc, iron, everything that comes back down. Even we heat with a wood heater, and we use hardwood, which is a lot of pecan and oak, what we have here. And it just, everybody gives it away because they're pruning trees, or trees fall or limbs fall, and you cut them up. Right now I have another bucket that I cleaned out my wood heater, and I go and I sprinkle wood ashes. Good source of magnesium on, sometimes I just broadcast it all over the lawn because my root systems are really far, and sometimes I locate. I go direct. into like my growing carrots and potatoes. They need a lot of minerals under the ground. So I'm always supplementing with what I have.
Yeah.
And it's just, seeing. And the big picture for me is I was just working, as we were getting ready to start it, I have this my little got from the thrift store, 10 cent, little thing, probably some kid's school thing got put in there. I make a garden journal. And I hadn't caught up with my garden journal because I've been really busy. And so I do an intuition with my whole property every year. And I get a piece of paper and a pencil. And I stand at my property and I go, what do I need to do this through 2018? And then I'll look and I'll went, I'd like to expand my greenhouse. I want to collect some old windows and kick off my little garden shed. And I need to repair this or that. But how much do I want to put more food forest in? And so I start writing down. I literally redraw a complete new picture of my property. And that is my intention. That is, what do I want to do? And some of that will change from last year. Oh, why did I want that? Well, now, because it's not going to work. And I had to walk with it for a while. Sometimes you don't, you just learn to, walk with it. Take your time and see what happens. Just like seeds. I have a seed library. I started in the library here, and I have my own personal seed library. And I will take out the seeds, and I'll get my big table, and I'll put it out, and I'll put everything out, and I go through it. And if it's too old, it gets broadcast. It just gets mixed with some soil, and it gets given to nature. And then I load my seed library, and then I look and I decide what's going in this year. What is talking? This year, corn doesn't really not want to go in, and I've been a big corn grower. And now what's going in are just a few little different things. I actually put in 50 historical black walnut seeds. Planted them. It's going to take 2 years, but they have one strip. So I put hairy vetch all around them as a nitrogen fixer. Then 4 rows away, I put 28 historical acorns from a 500-year-old live oak tree that we've been working on restoring. So I was like, I need to be thinking ahead. We have been restoring this tree that was overpaved, and it's been a little sick, and a lot of restoration has been done. But I really want some of those acorns in the ground. We lost in 2012, we lost the Sam Houston kissing tree, which was a live oak tree. And after the Alamo, Sam Houston was running for, I believe, governor. And he was doing a stump speeches. And I'm sure it was horseback or a wagon, And they would know a little bit ahead that he was coming to this town. And they would pick the oak groves. And 2 ladies had made handmade flags. I would probably guess, I don't know, but I'm guessing it was probably the United States flag and the Texas flag. And they, when he got there under this live oak tree, which was, hundreds of years old, they presented him with these flags, and he gave them a kiss. So it was called the kissing tree. Well, over years of overpaving meaning asphalt got put up around the crown roots, the roots on the bottom that should show, and people parking under it, they had to take it down in 2012 because it became dangerous that it would fall over. Yeah. What a shame. That's
and pavement and stuff like that burns the trees because
the trees will adapt, but you just can't keep running over their main roots.
Yeah, but trees grow with friends, in the ground, weeds and other plants, and
they're kin and family.
Yeah, it keeps the sun from burning their trunk when they don't have leaves. And so people don't really understand that. That's why when people go by orchards, commercial orchards, you see the trunk painted.
Yeah, the paint. Yeah,
because the way that they're planted isn't good for the trees, and it will burn the trunks. So they have to paint them with latex paint.
Like an orange tree will grow to the ground naturally.
Yeah.
And they prune them up, and then they have to put white latex paint on the bark because they sunburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
So,
best fruit on trees is always the limbs that come down and touch the ground, people.
yes,
Those are the limbs you want to keep.
yes, yes, yeah. It's been really, for me, I don't just plant, I do. I have plants under my lights right now. It looks like a UFO's landed in my bedroom, and I've got big grow lights, and it's not just tomatoes and peppers. I'm growing different kinds of lettuces, and I'm growing just flowering lettuce, and I'm growing some really different. I grew a cat grass, which is because I have a lot of rescued cats. My daughter has a cat. Oh my God, cat grass grows in like 5 days. It comes up and it's got this beautiful drip on the end of the leaf. It's a grass. So Adrian took her container of cat grass to Jezebel, who is a rescue, who was locked in a hot garage and left to die. And someone hurt her and rescued her, and Adrian rescued her. And she's a beautiful cat. Anyway, Jezebel ate that cat grass in a 4-inch container. She ate it down to a nub. She was so hungry for that cat grass. And then she would walk over and swat at it, like, grow, grow some more. So I don't just grow for the next season. That's part of that old paradigm of just going and getting your starts. And there's nothing wrong with that. Going and getting your starts and things that come up in companies that, grow specifically in greenhouses for that. But how about the future? Setting a tree or putting a black walnut seed in the ground is you're not going to see anything for 2 years is really an act of faith and trust and hope that next generation. I might be sending you a black walnut tree, Bridgette.
Well, I'll look for the most amazing place to plant it. I'll probably plant it in secret along the river somewhere.
You're right. Yeah, and how they came to me is I spin and dye. I've done fiber art for my whole life. It's my grandma started with a little tiny crochet hook and some thread, and I just hated it.
You know what? I have to come visit you for a long time. I'll come.
Oh my God! Yeah, I can grow cotton.
I want to grow cotton
to dye.
I want to do cotton seed and make
dye cotton and some alpaca. Yeah, a lot of alpaca raisers here. People grow a lot of raise alpacas.
Yeah, there would be a lot for me to learn.
I have got a nice little spinning wheel, and I got all the fun. Some drop spindles, and it's very fun. I felt also. I just love the felt. It's very fun. I even make earthing felted inserts for your shoes.
So what time of year? So it's at the so we shear sheep for the spring, right? So it's also preparing for spring. So sheep felting, wool making is a spring activity.
Right.
Getting the product.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They raise a lot of hair sheep here, and they really don't make a wool. They shed, and I'd never seen it until I came here. And they have boar, goats. They have a lot of different varieties or species of animals here, and they're really for eating. Meat animals. And they shed their wool, just falls off in big sheets like a buffalo, and I have actually tried to get some to see if it would felt. Almost anything will felt if you put enough soap and water on it. You're going to
get the stink out of it first.
yeah, that's always interesting.
I know.
Anytime you do, that's an interesting subject, because composting is stinky. Gardening is stinky.
Yeah, it's microorganisms.
Stinky. Working with, they call it spinning in the grease. A lot of people will spin in the grease. They won't wash their wool. They won't wash the oil, the lanolin out of it. And that is very, to me, Viking-ish. Right. They spun rough and they spun in the grease because that is waterproof.
Right. Yeah. No, like Ireland, Scotland,
or any kind of a cloak
Yeah.
spinning in the grease, that is water shedding right there.
Right.
But for a lot of people, it's kind of distasteful. And I don't mind. I don't like a lot of poop in it. You know, I pick, you put your fleece out and you take, the tags off and, and that a lot of people will put that in their compost or even bury it.
Yeah.
Because it's just hair. It's just, don't throw it away.
But that's like compost. In biodynamics, we build mound compost, and we put everything.
We've gotten way off in the weeds here, but that's really cool. My interests are really because it's not just one thing in the season. It's not just digging in the ground or getting, compost, and that's all good. That's all a part of it. But I was today, my spinning wheel's got a little dust on it, and I went, I am really itching to get that baby out again. I'm just really wanting to spin. And I like it when I can go outside of my patio and I can be in the sun. I don't really like being in the house too much. I get real antsy, So, and I'll put a rug down and I just get in. I have a chair that's just the right size. It's more of a stool. And it's just a single treadle. It's just an older Ashford spinning wheel. And just the whole rhythm and the cycle of spinning is really wonderful. You know that actually that was a man's job. And knitting socks, men knitted socks, and you knit with like 3 or 4 needles, to knit in a circle. And the women would knit the heels and the gussets, and the men would do the top, the leg, the women would do the heels, and then the man would finish, and the women would do the toes, finish the toes. So they had a little, the men could just sit, and I think there's a guy that's knitting at the Olympics, and he's a knitter at the Olympics, and all of his team knit.
They all knit for stress reduction.
Well, yeah, and it's right and left brain because you're using both hands.
I listened to the interview. Yeah. The interview, I think, was on NPR, a National Public Radio, and
right.
They interviewed him, and they talked about knitting, and they were laughing at him because he was knitting then because he was just waiting for his team to start.
Oh yeah, you can do it rote, man.
And they're from Finland.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yes, okay. Yeah. It's interesting because gardening just isn't about. You need to grow for fiber also.
Yeah.
You don't just need to grow just food. It's not just potatoes, carrots, tomatoes, and peppers. It really is about growing, and a lot of herbs are fibrous. Many, many things are fibrous that you can use, and even make baskets.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that I've been learning over the last, 6 years is that no matter what kind of a space you have for property, even just a quarter acre with a house on it, you can pretty much grow everything that you're going to need for fuel. You can make it ethanol. It's not going to be tons. You can make biofuel. You can have a super huge diversified diet and feed all of the living beings and animals and insects in your whole community.
Right.
But that's sustainability is I grow something, right? An animal, a plant or whatever, and then I make what I need out of it. That's sustainability, where you're not buying things and bringing them in, you actually grow everything you need. There was one of my teachers at Steiner for a class that I had on nutrition. He had a house and a quarter acre, and he decided he was going to see over like 2-year period how diversified he could grow. Okay, a quarter acre with a house on it, right? So it's not very big. And he grew everything he needed, grains, anything that he needed, he planted or got, chickens, whatever else. And he had the most, he said during that time frame, he had the most diversified diet. He said, but you can't work. Like, you don't have a job, right? Everything that you're growing and making is your job. And he'd sell stuff to pay rent, people in the neighborhood. And so it just became like a full-time thing. But that's pretty amazing, that with a quarter acre, you could be like pretty much sustainable. I mean, not your electrical power.
You can do tremendous things with grapevines.
Yeah.
You know, I have a whole bunch of, I did wicking out of pop bottles. We don't drink pop. So I went down to the recycle center. And they had this whole big thing of soda pop bottles, you know, and you cut them in half, flip them over, loosen the cap, and you shove that pointy end down into the bottom. You fill it with some good potting soil. And then the water, when you get it damp, the water will wick up through that loose cap and continue to, it's a small little wicking bed. And I went around and I have some really good grapes that have black Spanish and some purple grapes and some champanelles. And I wanted to propagate them. And now hardwood propagation has been something I wanted to do. And I haven't been really good at it, at hardwood. And I'm not really, I haven't really ventured into doing some other things, you know, with plants and trees. But so I decided, I'm going to propagate some of my grapes. So I got all these bottles already, and I had some organic potting mix. And I saw it was on sale, and I bought the whole flat for $2.50 for a huge bag. And it's wonderful. It's really good composted soil, you know, and you know, so I filled them up and I went around and I went, you know, I did some history and some research on it. 3 nodes, and you need at least a big around as a pencil. You need that vine to be big around as a pencil. And some of them weren't. Some of them were a little tinier, you know, and I tried them anyway. So 3 nodes and then clip it right above the node. And here was the piece I was missing. You need to scrape. I took my knife, and you need to scrape some of that bark off so you get into the sap wells where the xylem and phloem are going. And it's through these sap wells that the roots are going to come out. So scrape that a little bit, not too rough, don't get into the cadmium, and put it in some rooting hormone, and in it went, and watered them. Now I have a huge bunch of these pot bottles sitting out on my outside table, and they haven't started yet. But it was like, okay, I feel like I've jumped another hurdle. How do I propagate, you know, certain things? And I'm sure you could do the same with berries. You know, I have a lot of blackberries, and they're kind of brambly, and there's some people here that have some magnificent blackberries, but they're really old. I mean, they're like their grandmother's blackberries, and they're just big mounds. And we have a lot of wild grapes here in Texas. Which have the laetrile in the seeds. A lot of people don't know that. But the wild grapes make a great juice and a jelly here. And the grape seed has laetrile in it.
Well, make sure I get some of those heirloom grapes before I leave when I come visit, so that I could plant some stuff here, you know.
I have, I've harvested, I have probably 2 quarts of seeds in my seed storage of those grapes. You know, I think it's really important that I have to check them all the time. How do you store seeds? Okay, so I'm affiliated with Seed Savers International, and I have their books and everything, and I do not go there. You know, that's just time and money for me to travel. And anyway, I was talking to them on the phone, and I said, you know, I have a little bit of an issue about, I don't like the jars. I was using canning jars. I said, first of all, I'm having a little problem. A lot of seeds come with bugs in them. They'll have larvae in them, even corn seeds and different things.
Right.
And so I was like, what am I doing with, you know, help me out here. You know, all these jars are cumbersome and all this. They said, this is what we do. We use coffee beans. And they're in Mylar bags when you go to the grocery store. Well, we have a company here in Texas that called Ruta Maya, and they make some of the most wonderful roasted coffee. And they come in a Mylar bag. And we grind our own beans every morning. You know, everybody gathers around and we have coffee. She said, do not wash them out. Leave a little of that coffee in there. She goes, and then package your seeds in Ziploc. I don't like plastic, but I do use them, and I reuse them as many times as I can. write on them, date them with a Sharpie, and pack them in these coffee bags, squeeze all the air out and ziplock them. And she goes, and the coffee keeps the bugs out.
Yeah.
The oils that are on the side of the bag.
Yeah, in biodynamics, we use, well, the spring preparation, which is the 501 prep, which is the silica prep. We use that for spraying all the seeds. And what it does is it will keep any mold or fungus from growing on them. It will cause the seeds to have a longer life extension. And it helps to dry them up properly so that they're ready to go. And I know that some friends of mine who grow all different kinds of greens in Grass Valley biodynamically, before they will harvest the seeds, they will spray the 501 prep on them.
Oh, interesting.
And then once they harvest them, then they spray the 501 prep on them again, and then their greens last literally like 5 years longer.
So it's a foliar spray. They're using a foliar spray, spraying the leaves. Or are they also soaking the roots?
You just spray the whole plant, the top part, because the 501 is a photosynthesis. It's a silica.
Right.
So, but yeah, so, and then that helps to keep them all, good to go, no fold, no fungus.
I use seaweed for doing that. So I'm more interested in that formula you're talking about. And John Trambulli, the natural gardener, I use John's recipe, which is a fantastic liquid fertilizer. It's just, and it's all done natural.
Well, this is not for fertilizing them or anything. This is for their long-term keep and the proper drying of them. Especially if like you're harvesting grain or seeds and it's really wet period, and you spray the silica on it, it will help to dry them out faster because the more light, they're getting more light. So it increases the light intake. So it furthers the process. So say, for example, you can also use the 501 for, say at the end of the year, your tomatoes and stuff aren't really ripe. And you can spray them with 501 and it will increase the photosynthesis so that everything will ripen a little bit faster. So you don't lose it to like frost or whatever else. So it just kind of aids things along. I've also used it for, I was doing an urban farm for some people in Sparks, which in the really old rundown area. And so I was redoing their whole yard, building a garden and all kinds of herbal plants. And I put in some blackberries to create natural fencing and just lots of different stuff. But there was like some problems with the neighbors, and a lot of the old landscaping was dying because we're desert. If you don't water this stuff, these old, huge, fruit trees and stuff, it's all just going to die. It's all going to go back to sand. So
don't you have a lot of cottonwoods there?
They're all dying. Most of them are all dead. So sad. But anyway, so one morning I was stirring the 501 prep, and I did a spray around the yard, and then I looked across the street at the trees. So these people were making meth in their house. It's where I got my dog. I basically paid them for the dog. I said, give me the dog. So they making meth in the house. They had 2 kids. It was a wreck over there. The police were always going over there all the time. It was just a really bad situation.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know what? There's like this illumination thing that happens with the 501 prep because it increases photosynthesis. Now, in the desert, it's a really difficult thing to use because sand is silica. So if you overuse it in desert settings, then you're going to burn stuff, right? Because, it gets it too hot, too much going on. But there was nothing alive in their yard or anything. And so I decided that night I was going to stir some 501 prep, silica. And I was going to spray it on the 2 big trees that are there to help them with the negative energy in that house on that property. So I'm out there, after dark, and I'm doing my hour of stirring and binding my 501. And people in the neighborhood were calling me the witchy poo. But the people's yard that I worked on was like, it was so green and there was so much amazing stuff going on. People called it the greenhouse for miles. So they're like, oh, you're up there, stirring your witchy poo stuff again. And it's like, yeah, I'm just stirring my brew. So then it got dark and I went over there like 10 o'clock. It was like in the summertime, and I just sprayed where I could reach onto the trees. And I just said, hopefully this will help you to bring some more light in to help you fight. And that's all I said. I just wanted to help the trees in that area and, help the energy. So within 2 weeks, these people could not get evicted. No matter how many times the SWAT team came in the middle of the night, please come out of the house with your hands up. I mean, it went on all the time. 2 weeks, they got evicted. They were gone, and no one ever saw them again after I sprayed.
Oh, yeah.
So
I totally believe in that. Yeah, the elementals in nature. Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A quick story about I've been doing this project about restoration of historical oak trees here in Texas. And we have a courthouse that has historical oak trees under it. And one is dated to 500 years old. And I tell people, I started noticing this tree. I do farmer's market under it, under the courthouse square. And we just pull in our cars and we open up the back of our rigs and we set up tables and we have a farmer's market. It's small. It's very cool. It's very fun. And I kept looking at this tree and I went, oh God, I know you're in trouble. Will you tell me? Will you tell me if you're in trouble? Yes, we're in trouble.
Send help now.
At the time, it was popular to put they would use concrete and make like a little flower bed. It's still done occasionally. And they do like a curb around a tree and then case it. And literally this 500-year-old tree was pushing this off. But she had also was having some fungus issues because the soil had built up and gotten up over her crown. And I got some other people. I got an arborist in. I did this whole program. And the arborist is a tree guy. He's been in the trees for 30 years. He will not cut down a tree. I said to him, can I say this to you? And he said, sure. I said, I can't say this to many people. And I said, but the trees are doing this. The trees are getting the help because from the judge to the county commissioner to the attorney, it just went easy. Blah, blah, blah. And all that's taken out and the asphalt's removed and the stuff has been done on them. And I said, the trees did this. I just happened to be the dodo standing there.
I was the only one listening.
I do. Yeah. I just needed one dodo bird to listen and to draw it up and write it up and with guidance, went in and with lots of prayer because, a lot of people don't like it messing with their shit.
It's true.
Don't like it messing with their stuff. Their trees, their stuff, their thing. This is how we've always done it. Well, do you want this tree to die like the kissing tree? And I said, come and look. Come and look. Oh, yes. I walked by this tree my whole life, and I never noticed.
Yeah.
I said, in 500 years, we're at a small section right here. What can we do so it has 500 more?
Yeah.
It really is to restoration and get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get out of the way. Let her heal. Let her do what she does. So it really is about, sometimes some of us, we kind of get in the fix because we keep raising our hand for this stuff. And we get called witches.
Yeah.
And when I put up my turbine, I got called a devil.
Oh, you got a devil?
Oh, yeah. They thought I was the devil, man, and I was like, no, I'm just, I'm an American. And I can put up a turbine and make my own power if I want to. You just wait what's coming on. Man, I got 15 solar panels up there now.
Yeah.
And people came from cars showed up, trucks showed up to help me. And so I so much wasn't the devil. Now that my neighbors are saving rainwater. They're using essential oils. They're eating better instead of taking and there's nothing wrong with going to the doctor. But instead of that being the only path they had.
Yeah. Well, I'm anti-doctor, so I'm...
I don't like them either. My children were born at home, and, and I believe Dr. Kelly, only if it's broken or bleeding do you need to go.
Yeah, no, that's what... Well, sometimes bleeding, not so much. You got the right packet, it clots it all up and heals up.
The bone sticking out. You might want to go get some help.
That might be the only reason, actually.
Right.
I kind of question that because my friend Muwanji Hassan in Uganda comes from an old family of traditionals, and he can set bone long distance.
Right.
So,
Yes.
you know, if that didn't work, then I'd go to the hospital. But I'd be like typing Muwanji in Uganda. I'm like, emergency, fix the lip bone in my leg.
Right.
So, okay, let's. I just wanted to say this.
Do you have an outline? Or are we just going intuitive here? Do you have an outline that you're looking at?
Well, there's a couple of things that were just on here about
okay, good.
Spirits, nature spirits, kind of more like a Rudolf Steinery kind of thing about growing things, and kind of like with the focus on spring. And then I thought we could go over, and what I'll do is at the bottom of this video, I have a whole bunch of biodynamic links, and for people to kind of look more at 501 preparation and stuff, and I'll put those on there. So if you have a permaculture link you want added, and then we also want to add Summer, her daughter is got a GoFundMe so she can get her permaculture certification. So
well, that's my daughter.
Yeah,
my
that's
daughter,
your daughter.
Summer has a GoFundMe for me.
Oh, for you. Okay, so I'm trying to fund. Okay, so we're funding.
Yeah, Summer set it up, and it's a GoFundMe for me to finish my permaculture design course.
Okay, so anyway.
Kirby Fry out of Austin.
Okay.
And it's on a permaculture farm area, and it's 2 weekends a month. And I would like to finish the course, finish finish that.
So we're going to have that link.
I'm it's only a $1,200 GoFundMe.
Yeah, so we're going to put that link underneath.
That'd be very cool. That'd be very
cool. If people want to help Jannie finish her we'll have that link too, and I'll have some biodynamic links for the 501 prep, so people can kind of check it out. This is one thing it said in biodynamics. It's kind of put into 4 main types of nature spirits. I thought this would be nice. It's elemental beings who work in solids, in plants, especially in relationship to the roots and the geomes. Number 2, those who work with fluids, in moisture, permeated air, in the plants, in the connection with the leaves and the sprouting, the undines. Number 3, those who work through air and light at the flowering stage of plants, xylifs. 4, those who work with warmth as seeds developed and fruit ripen, fire sprites. So in biodynamics, those were kind of like the 4 areas.
So bees were linked into the fire sprites to that phase?
Mm-hmm, they're in the ripening phases, so probably more the hotter parts of summer.
All right.
Kind of a thing, but I thought that was interesting. Their fire medicine, the bees. But anyway, so there's different forces and beings and things that are going on way below. So when the spring comes, all those beings they're becoming active. You may see them, you may not see them, but they're getting busy and doing what they do best, and helping them along. So what we see and what we don't see are things that are starting to operate in spring, the seen and the unseen. And we come out of winter, which is the hibernation. The Paiutes have, my friend Marshall, I got to go to the ceremonies, the Paiute ceremonies, and the fall one is putting the bears to sleep, and we put, food on the plates for the bears, and we usher them into hibernation so that they can go through the dream time, the dreaming world. And the Paiutes say it's really important to do that because otherwise, Marshall said that your bear doesn't go to sleep. And if your bear doesn't go to sleep during the winter, you can have a lot of, schizophrenic, hallucinage, a lot more stress, where the winter is where you start to rest so that you can collect the messages from the dreaming time of the bear. And Black Elk talks a lot about the dreaming bear.
Right.
People can read that. And then in the spring, we have Waking the Bears Up ceremony, where we give them food and everything, and we thank them for their journey, into the dreaming worlds, and that we make ourselves available and wake ourselves up so that when the bear wakes up physically, the bear can communicate to us what it found through the dreaming world. And when we wake up, so we can have a conversation in the unseen about that. So when the bears wake up, we wake up, and it's time to get the 3D physical waking dream work done.
All right. Yes. Yeah. One of the things we used to do after sweat is that you'd fast before, and then you'd have a sweat ceremony in Nipi, and then you usually have a feast way, and we would make a plate for the spirits, and we would take everything that we had, people are, all kinds of food, and you'd make a plate, and then usually the sweat leader would go out, or the fire tender would go out and place it out there and hold it up in the sky and say, come and eat with us. Here's some food for you. And I'm sure they would eat and enjoy. And they always, in my thing, they'd always like a little chocolate.
Yeah.
Chocolate, put a little chocolate on there. And I know that what the spirits got done with, nature would eat too. Yeah. Yes. And nothing ever goes to waste in nature.
So I have a question for you. What would you, because I think this is a really important part of the whole component about preparing for spring. Say you're a person and you have not had a relationship with your yard, and you've actually been void of a relationship with your yard. Maybe you even have other people taking care of it. How would you offer an offering, and what would you say to your yard to walk into it, to have a relationship with it, so that you can start to build intuition about what your yard needs? How would you present that? And what kind of offering would you give? Would you give water, corn? I
would do both, but you know what I would do? There's a couple things. First of all, you need to claim your property. It is yours, and you make an intention, and you can simply, by walking your boundaries, and wherever your foot falls, when you walk, you pray. People have forgotten that. Wherever you walk, you make an imprint, and you're praying. Even if you're not praying, you are. You're making an intention. And you can actually just take even a bag of cornmeal, and just sprinkle some cornmeal on all your edges. And then you might go a little farther, and you might have some, this is where crumbles of crystals work really good. Not really good working crystals, but those have gone in the ground too. And you might bury in the 4 directions on the edge of your property a crystal or a stone or a hematite or anything that your intuition is telling you to do. And those are like lasers. Boy, they work from one to the other. And they work up too and below. They're not just a static thing. They're communicating. The other thing I would do is I would put some stones in I have some glass bowls, and I sit them out and I make moon water under a full moon. I let that, and then you drink it. And, or you could make a solar water. You could and it's the intention of infusing that water. Just like, what's his name? Horrible with brutalizing his name, but the man who did the water, he took the pictures.
Emoto.
Yes, his water. And I've used his water. I've even raised our river through a drought by 2 inches by blessing water, making chi water, and taking out with a group of women.
It works.
And the river went up 2 inches every time we would go out and pray and put the water back in the river. And they were like, well, there's been no rain. We don't know why the river went up. And I was like, well, we do.
Yeah.
So you could take that and you can sprinkle it. You can even simple as put it in your watering can and go out and water. Or you can, drink some of it yourself.
Sometimes some of us that are kind of a little bit better at this kind of work, we forget, because I always have people ask me, like, what would be your intention? What's the main thing? And I always tell people to stay out of having these long paragraph, intentions, right. And just focus in on like your intention when you walk out onto your land to get to know it. And then you have to have your mental intent and maybe a verbal intent, and then you walk out with the offerings. What
Right.
would you focus in on your mental and verbal and emotional intent? Like, what would that be for you?
If you're doing the body, mind, and spirit thing, it would be, first of all, it would be my, some people need those long sentences.
They do.
Yes.
But it's hard when you're walking across.
Okay.
It's hard when you're walking around a property trying to throw stuff out.
Right. And they like minutia, and that's totally cool. I appreciate that. But it is for me. My mental part is to be free. Through all my years of doing Vision Quest and the work and the hikes and the training and everything, it would always come down to one heart opening was to be, I want to be free.
Right.
What do I want? I don't want to be in a partnership. I know some women that's all they want to do is their soulmate to come. And I was like, I was never interested.
Yeah.
I am my own soulmate. I'm pretty groovy. I'm quite happy with me. And so it came down, not to diminish that, but I just always wanted to be free. And that was, man, talk about work. That is like taking a helmet off your head, piece by piece by piece, and peeling and peeling. And when we work with the land on our property, we have to take some of those old thought patterns we have of, is it supposed to look like the 1950s with the mown lawn and 2 trees and 5 bushes? So it looks like a golf course or whatever.
So just to clarify, because I get people who are new on the path, right? So I'm gonna prod you a little bit more. So my whole thing was, I wanted to be free in my mind and free in my spirit and free in my words, so that I could be impeccable with my words and create good words, more higher dimensional, vibrational, conscious words. Then when I go out to give the offerings, then I am actually offering freedom to my land. I'm offering the freedom for my land to speak what it needs to speak, to be in spirit what it needs to be, and and also to communicate those things to me, so that I can learn, so we can learn together. Because your yard may be not so good because you're not so good inside, right? Or you're too tension, you have too much tension, and so your yard is a lawn with 2 trees and it's immaculate. So we have to free the place that we've ended up in order to free ourselves, vice versa. So we have to offer that freedom in exchange.
It's interesting because people who fight weeds have more weeds.
Yeah.
And poor soil, weeds grow in poor soil.
Yeah.
And it really is about, are we the poor soil?
Yeah. Well, and the weed too.
Development, in our own growth, in our own spiritual consciousness, and how we are attaching and growing is about, we get more composty.
Yeah. Well, and that weed sometimes too, like say for you example, you all of a sudden in spring and you have a specific type of weed that's growing in your yard. There's a specific lesson that's attached to that weed. And so some studying online or whatever, maybe in order to see what that weed means. Like with yarrow, where yarrow grows, it is a friend to everything. And it brings up ancient nutrients from underground to serve the other beings. Yeah, so if you have yarrow, it's saying, I'm trying to help get nutrient up here so that you can grow things up here. And these beings here that are already growing need me to be here. Or mullein, I notice people have lung cancer and don't know it, or have some kind of chronic respiratory stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That mullein will just start growing in their yard. So sometimes we have to look at what is taking over to see what's taken over inside of us, so that we can actually work with the land, because it's trying to actually help us and it's trying to also talk to us.
Yeah, there's a big piece about being separate. There's a mindset that there's country and then there's my yard.
Yeah.
And whatever's growing in the country, they don't want here.
Yeah.
But what your yard used to be, that was country, what's out in the field. And it's breaking down that thinking. It's all right to have dandelions. I love them. And when I honored the dandelion, they come and they're just spotty here and there. It isn't a whole, it has taken over the whole yard. And it really is breaking down a thinking of, I honor what is everywhere here, what is all here. And let me have a place for my tomatoes or my peppers. Let me have a little patch for my potatoes or whatever else I want to grow. And it really is getting away from that separation of nature, separating. There's nature and then there's me. And that is how nature is out there. And then and this is how I am going to make nature. Let me tell you, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't poison enough. You can't dig enough. You can't do enough. You will not win.
Well, you put yourself on the chopping block with nature too, because if you're not going to be its friend, eventually it'll figure out how to get rid of you.
Right.
It'll create a bacteria or whatever else. It'll be like, look, I'm done with you people. Get the hell out of here.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's and it doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't happen in one season. Just like even growing a victory garden, if you will, growing a garden that produces food for your table. You might have one year it's a great tomato year, and then you have another year that it's a good green year, collard greens, or this year I got aphids. Oh my gosh, where'd those come from? This was a good corn year. This is what about journaling also, is writing it down, because I can't totally hold on to everything in my memory. And then this also gives anybody who comes along might want to look and see the progression of what's been going on through the years, and it's about acceptance. It's about accepting us internally, who we are and what we look like, and how we think and how we are, and being
part of the system, not the controller of a system.
Right. Right. Having the Barbie doll thing smashed into your face when you're growing up, and you're never going to look like that.
Yeah.
And so that puts a whole mindset of never being good enough, never being thin enough, never being blonde enough, never being rich enough. That is a lie.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't make trash. We're all divine and beautiful, no matter who or what we are. And it's looking at the dandelion, which is an import, by the way, and completely edible. That plant is beautiful. Yeah. Instead of thinking that is a weed I have to get rid of, I have, my butt's big. Oh, I got to go and get that. That's got to go away. Hey, no, be who you are and love every ounce of every inch of who you are. And when we get to that, it's not just a work in one thing, it's a work at all things at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever I go into people's yards and I look, to try to help them build a food production or whatever, I try to make them, no matter how small they are, full production, because I don't want to bring anything in because of disease. But every time I'll look at something and people will say, well, I don't really like that and like that and like dandelions, I'm like, but that's food. That's what you want me to come here and make. Yeah. And it's already growing for free, and we should find out how to make it grow more so that you have medicine, anti-cancer, and you have a food. Like if you're going to need to eat something, you may have to rely on your dandelion or whatever else that you have that's already
right now. Wild lettuce is up like crazy everywhere, and chickweed is up, and chickweed is my chickens absolutely love it. I'll go and pull some of it, and then I'll get some and I put it in my solar dryer, and then I have chickweed in my herbal cabinet also to use. It's really tasty when it's small. It gets a little tough and not so flavorful when it gets older. And wild lettuce. And occasionally I'll have a couple of people, they're over here, and I go, would you like to, see what you can eat in the yard? Look, you're standing on it right there.
Yeah, you can taste it.
And when you break that lettuce, look, the white latex, that is a painkiller.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And you can eat it young, and you can eat it as a cooked green, or you can dry it and powder it and use it and put it in even gel caps and take it internally or make teas. So it really is about the breakthrough.
But when you, it's funny because
around us.
it's funny because when you tell an adult, like, oh, hey, here, you break a piece off. Hey, would you like to taste this? They'll look at you like,
well, yeah, and
can I take this to have some?
My crunch and munch, and ooh, that's good. It's
but
not
the kids
eating peaches.
Yeah, the kids will like grab it right out of your hand and be like, hell yeah, I want to eat that.
Yes.
Adults are like,
right. Like sour grass, that kind of that little clover. We used to eat that as snacks when we were kids.
Yeah.
We'd pull sour grass up which is kind of an oxalis. And eat the shoots off of it.
Yeah, some farms I've been on when we've, done it, we're out there early in the morning or all day and we have to pick for our CSA baskets or whatever else, there's a point where we're starving, and because we get up at 5 a.m. because you have to get that produce when it's the crispest, and we'll be just sitting in the spinach patch, just shoving spinach in our mouth.
Oh, yes. I'm going to go out and have a snack.
Yeah. I can work and have a snack all at the same time.
Yeah, that's like you can eat sweet potato leaves, but sweet potatoes are a nightshade, whereas potatoes and tomatoes and peppers are a nightshade, and you cannot eat the greens.
Yeah.
Which to me, they go in the composter. But sweet potato leaves are delicious, and you can eat them.
Well, I didn't know that. I have to try them.
Oh, yeah, they're really good, especially the real tender ones.
I was making fermented vegetables for a while there out of mostly leaves because, well, I had this thing, one of the first builds that I started to do before I got into a program or on a farm was I called it the Salad Bowl Project. So I had this yard, and so I grew salad items so that I could give a whole thing to people. But I was putting like cucumber leaves in there and, salad and radish leaves and some tomatoes. And also I grew some lemon balm, some oregano, and something else. And so you could put those herbs in your salad too, right? It was like this, major creative salad. But it would be funny because I dropped, a layered bag of all this stuff off and I'd be like, this will last you 5 salads, good big salads. And people would call me and they go, well, what is the furry stuff? And it's like, well, radish leaves are furry and cucumber leaves are super furry. And they were like totally freaked out about it. So then I started fermenting because, the leaves have all the big nutrition in it. They're the solar panels. They have all the chlorophyll. Leaves are good. And even zucchini leaves are pokey and different leaves. But I started getting into all the leaves that you could eat. I didn't know about the sweet potato. And then I put them in big glass jars and then I ferment all the leaves, right? And so then they become fermented and then I can put them onto a plate and eat the fermentation.
Right. I'm a fermenter too. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to make sauerkraut today.
But then the leaves aren't so furry and pokey if you actually ferment them. Yeah. And they're kind of long and so they're just a little bit different texture, kind of a thing. But that's how I got because the leaves, you can eat everything, and people want to just get the zucchini off the plant. You could take a zucchini leaf, and you could make like a mixture, and you could, roll it up into a little bun and stick it in the oven and cook it, and they're so awesome. Right.
Yes, I even have people who ask for my grape leaves.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because they ferment with the grape leaves.
Yeah, well, grapes are super.
Push them down over your top to get it under the fluid. Grapes. And I love seeing reactions. I give a lot of food away at farmers market, and I'll have those little tiny sweet tomatoes, that are just prolific. And I this lady, I said, please just eat it. She puffed it in her mouth. The look on their face, and you can see their color just flares. And she said, well, I'm buying these for my mom. Okay. Her mom was sitting in the truck. All of a sudden, I see her hit the truck, and she's back. She goes, I ate them all before I got in the door of my truck. She had powdered those tomatoes. Then somebody was here, and asparagus was up. And I reached over, and I said, oh, just kind of feel, and where it's soft, it'll just snap off. And I handed him one, and I started chewing one, and he carefully put it in his mouth, and he took a couple bites, and he said, this is what asparagus tastes like?
Real asparagus. Yeah, this is real.
He goes, it's sweet. It is so delicious. And I said, and I go, even once it starts to flare out into a fern, you can eat the ends of the ferns are still delicious. They're really good. And he was like, well, what else can you eat here?
Yeah.
You know? And then you just start grazing.
Yeah, and every year you just plant more and more stuff that goes by itself.
Right.
And then pretty soon you have so much food you don't know what to do with. You need a machete every year.
When you taste, and that's one of the things I would say in a if we're back to the subject of a pretty barren American type yard, 1950s yard, is even get a pot. Get a large, like a 10-gallon pot. Put some good potting soil in it and plant a tomato.
Yeah.
And put a little cage in there and water it and tend it and learn how to prune the suckers off of it and the leaves off the bottom so you don't get, fungus up in the tomato. And those first tomatoes that you grew and you get to, well, there's a breakthrough right there.
There is a huge breakthrough right there.
Right. And so, you don't have to go in with plows and clippers and things and do it all at once. You can do small.
One thing at a time, one step at a time.
Right.
That's all. Right. That's all the earth is asking is one step. Just take one step on some level towards it and help it. So I was going to add, and then we'll talk. We'll just go down kind of a mental list of or things for spring. So Anastasia talks about in her books about how the seed can bind with our DNA. So if we put seeds in our mouth for a certain period of time, it gives the seed an idea of our toxicity. It's a computer program. So it's downloading information into it about our toxicity, our diseases, our nutrient deficiencies, which can give the seed more information. And when you plant it, it can be more prone to growing for you as a medicine. So it will grow certain nutrients you need. It will do different things that you need. So I think in Anastasia's book, she recommends 15 minutes in your saliva, and then go ahead and start planting them or start them as sprouts. So something else to think about. Your relationship to your food starts with the soil, starts with the water, starts with the seed. Plant a good seed. Right. So after you soak it in your mouth.
Separating from a seed that doesn't touch a human. It's planted with a machine. It's harvested with a harvester. Yeah. It's gone through a seed separator. It's put in a bag, and then it goes back into another machine.
Yeah, and it doesn't usually have relationships with bugs or insects. It doesn't have any relationships. So when the native people talk about all my relations, those are the relationships that they're talking about. Right. The relationships with insects and the soil and the water.
Yes, I breathe on my seeds.
Yeah.
I handle them with my hands, and I actually will do the little bless you, help me. And it's one of the first things you learn native way is when you start harvesting or you go out with an herbalist, is that you start talking to them.
Praying.
And you exchange, you eat, you breathe on them, and you learn a communication. So and you say, when you go and harvest a plant and you're ill, you go to that plant and you give something down first. It might even spit on the ground or a penny. Anything you have, you give away first, especially when you're harvesting for medicinal herbs. And then you say to that plant, I have diabetes. Please help me.
There you
and
go.
Then you pick that plant. You don't take it all.
Yeah,
you leave. And you take it. It's called ethical wild harvesting. Now it has a name, and then you take that, and then you use it appropriately, or
Well, that's the thing about that cracks me up. Like you said, ethical harvesting or raw food, or all these concepts. They're not new concepts. People ate raw food. They harvest and gather, and that's all they had was raw food. They didn't put some sauce on it or dressing. They ate it as it was, as they went.
Right.
So that was the start of the raw food movement when we were nomadic or like ethical harvesting. They knew to do that because everybody and all the bugs and everybody else needs part of that plant too. You can't eat all for yourself.
Yes. And it doesn't hurt you to have a little of the soil on it.
No, that's the most important part is the microorganisms.
I was like, oh my God, I can't eat that. There's a little bit of soil on it.
Yeah, the soil is what you want because
the soil.
you need those. Yeah, you need the soil bugs in your gut because your body
I love to be barefoot. Of course, I have fire in Texas, but I love to be. I have. I've made my own sandals, and I have Tarahumara running sandals that I've made. Just out of scrap leather I had, and I made and I like to walk in those or barefoot in my soil, and I'm muddy feet and dirty hair, messy, you know. And I'll if I'm doing a workshop or something, I'll have my daughters go, well, am I okay? Am I clean? Am I kind of going to be okay if I go in there? And one of the things we have noticed with our animals, we have a rescued potbelly pig. We love him. And if someone comes up to our property and they have fabric softener in their clothes, or they have cologne on, or they have, people that don't use that, they're not aware of how potent that is.
Toxic almost.
And they will walk up and the pig will start squealing and grunting and acting really weird.
Well, it doesn't recognize what it is.
Because he can smell it, and it triggers hormones. That's all we can, and he wants to nudge them. He's a neutered pig, but he'll want to nudge and rub and smell and sniff, even lick. And it really is interesting because it triggers a hormone. It's a loosh, quite honestly.
Wow.
It's that harvesting that the dark ones like too. So when I have people come, I don't let them get out with my animals. I have chickens and my pig. Even my dogs are extremely sensitive now to, other than essential oils and natural cleaners we make. We do not wash with any kind of laundry soap. We use baking soda.
Yeah.
That's it. And everything is, I've done that for years. Don't use anything. And you don't smell. You smell good.
Yeah.
You smell human. You're not stinky.
Well, but this is the thing is sometimes like when I have clients come in and I have to determine like what kind of nutritional or disease, illness stuff that they're dealing with, and they are too domesticated. I can't tell. Like you have your eyebrows tattooed or you're painting them on. I can't see if there's no ends on your eyebrows, I need to see that because I can tell that you have a thyroid disorder. So there's different things like dyeing your hair all the time. I can't tell like what your nutrient levels are. I can't see where your system is at. And the same thing with smells. I can smell people if they're more natural and I can figure out what's going on. Is that your liver? Is that your gallbladder?
Right.
Kind of
their breath. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to preparing for spring. So one of the things that we kind of talked about was detox and get yourself on some kind of detox, like get in tune with your body and figure out what you need because you're in the process of waking up like everything else is waking up, right? And then planting trees. That's what Jannie's been really doing is planting seeds and trees right now because it's a really good time of year to do that. What else do you think is good?
Well, let's broach the issue of water.
Okay.
And I have 5,000 gallons of rainwater collected. And I tell you, I didn't spend a whole lot of money. I don't have some big, massive, expensive rainwater collection. Most of these are food grade barrels that people were throwing away. They were out in their pastures or they didn't want, I even got a 500 gallon from a young couple. They go, oh, we don't want to do this. You want to buy this for $50? Brand new. I said, oh, yes, I want that. Called a friend, put it in the back of the truck, hauled it over, And I use PVC pipe that I cut long. That's my gutters. I put up fancy gutters. The front of the house has fancy gutters. But the back, all they do is collect stuff from the trees. Oh, they get so dirty because they have a metal thing that goes in that attaches them to the side of the house. I use PVC. I use a snap line. I cut it with my regular saw. So I have two big pieces of PVC pipe that I did pay $10 for. And then you have to drill a hole and then you can put it up and put it at a little angle. And then it goes into a filtering system and then a pipe, and it comes into my 500. You know, what? I paid, a whole $100 for that. And then, and 55-gallon drums that I have raised up to, I use cinder blocks, and I need them 2 cinder blocks high. And then I put a faucet on them. And anything that I have got an edge of a roof, I've got a PVC pipe on it. I'm collecting rainwater. And then with that, I can just hook a hose on it. And I have little short hoses, different hoses. It's kind of a mishmash thing. Around the garden I will put a pump in my big one, and I'll move the water and fill up my small ones. And I've already made my electricity. I haven't even bought my electricity to run my pump. I've used it that's solar powered or wind powered. So
gravity fed too.
Water is essential because our hose water often is treated with chemicals.
Yeah.
We don't have any fluoride here. They tried it one time a couple years ago, and we packed that meeting so bad we almost ran them out of town.
But chlorine will kill bacteria. Yeah. Right. It'll kill microorganisms. Right. It'll damage the sunlight nutrient component in the water. Right. It'll do a lot of different things to it. So yeah, tap water.
Right. So I'm using. We live off our river. We have a river here. And it is treated a little, not heavily. And there sometimes the bloom gets in the river and they have to treat it a little more. And so at those times, I'm really using my rainwater collection. I have a 300-gallon off the corner of the house. I have a 500-gallon off the back of the house. And these are all raised, and they have hoses or soaker systems on it that I can just, tell you, using water. When you start hauling water, how heavy it is, it becomes a reality. Yeah. We had a drought in 11, and a severe drought, and we could not use our hose water. We could only shower 3 days out of the week, and everybody had a bucket. At that time, I had rainwater collection, and I saved my pecan trees and an elm tree with 150 gallons of water. By any kind of, I wash a dish, I'd save the water. Our shower water was in buckets. We go out and just carefully put it around on the drip line. And they survived. They didn't do really well, but they didn't die. Right. So when you really get into where you need water, talk about a thing of gratitude.
Right.
Of having water. That's one of the reasons we chose this place, was we're 4 blocks off the river.
Right. So water collection is important for spring, so that you.
Yes, and the spring rains, come and you get all your water collected.
Yeah.
And as that sits, people go, oh God, my rainwater's all green. Oh yeah, the plants are going to dig it.
Yeah, because they're going to
totally love that.
It's fermented. They're going to love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good water. Yeah.
So then other thing too is you may want to, preparing for spring, you may want to reintroduce yourself to your yard and your garden and set the intention. And if you haven't claimed the energy of your territory, you can go out and set your intention and do an offering, some cornmeal or crystals or even a little tobacco kind of a thing.
Yep.
And then spring, you can start to grow in covers or cold frames if you want. You could do some spring food and crops. And mostly spring is just for, getting back in the game. And like she said, if you grow one tomato plant, one anything, this can start the process, take you through spring. And it helps you because then you will adapt and be ready for each new cycle that comes, each new direction, each new of the seasons. And so where you're at in your life personally, and what the next stage is. And sometimes the fall can be the busiest part because of the harvesting and things like that, and preparing the food and setting it away so that you have something coming up for winter.
Yeah, here my fall garden is probably more prolific than my spring and summer because we have very hot summers.
Yeah, so spring's
Yeah.
more about just getting out there and
Yeah.
just getting a plan
Right.
and maybe,
Yeah.
figuring out what to do, and also getting some water out for your birds and your bees, and
Correct.
maybe throw out some wild
Maybe
flowers.
doing a little,
Seeds.
if you're not into it, doing just a little bit of research for your area, finding a good nursery, and
Yeah,
finding
yeah, yeah, yeah.
some butterfly friendly plants,
Yeah.
flowering plants that you can even put in pots
Well, I'll give
along the butterfly
so
friendly. Yeah.
yeah,
Go.
so the Spikenard Farms, which is I think in Virginia, uh, um, Gunther Hawk. I interviewed him before on my show.
Nice.
He wrote the book called Towards Saving the Honeybees. He's an old school biodynamic farmer, and he has like a 500-acre parcel that is only designed for bees. You can buy seeds right off his website for all
Cool.
pollinators. Every kind of flower that there is that's the best for bees. And he also sells a bee tea, which is really good for bees in spring, because you make the bee tea and then you put it out for them and they drink it.
Nice. I never heard of that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's biodynamic stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, so Spikenard Farms, and look on there and see what they have for the bees. And I think they have the movies. He was like in the Queen of Bees or whatever documentary, and I think they have a few documentaries on their website that you can watch, and kind of shows different things.
Another really inspirational, if you're into watching videos, and I love this, is Seed.
Yeah, that's a super good one too. And
yeah, it is
that
wonderful. And you can even see it. I think you can see it on YouTube now.
There's a new documentary out too called Rotten that talks about our food supply and stuff like that. That is a must-see as well.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. But I'm
gonna. Seed is wonderful, and there's a lot of other ones, King Corn, and there were some other ones that are just really give you just a jolt of reality. Now since I have gone through all that, I'm very careful about too much negativity coming into my consciousness. And it's not that I don't listen to it, but I don't seek it.
Yeah.
I'm very careful. I am a being of light and of consciousness. And if it gets too negative, even people who are too negative or speaking too negatively, I have to remove myself and I just slip away. I just, like we have a new neighbor, and they have children. And I we were doing composting, and I heard the boy say to the father, "What are they doing over there?" And the father says, "Some sort of gardening, I think." And I went, "Oh, how interesting." That their consciousness was, kind of negative, some sort of gardening, I think. But they have not seen when the fruit is hanging. They have not, here it looks all shambly at this phase of it looks messy and shambly, and a good permaculture garden is not going to look perfect. It's going to look shambly. It's going to have, debris. It's going to have things composted. It's going to have leaves. It's not going to be perfect and edged and mowed to the inch of its life, where there's nothing living in the soil anymore because everything is run away. Every worm and bug is left. And I thought, what an opportunity for these children that are now living across the street from me, kind of catty corner, to come over and have a peach and see a growing living organism. And it has taken, we're pushing on to our 8th year. Let me tell you, this was really kind of a done nothing to it place. It had some pecan trees and nobody ever really did anything to it. It had some crepe myrtles, which I love, and it had a few little things done to it, but nothing. And we're only the 4th owner of an 90-year-old home. And so, it's had a long history of not being messed with. Living in a stone house is like living in a cave. When the storms come, we don't hear anything in here. But it also gets really cold. We have insulated the attic. But it'll heat up and hold. It's very interesting. It's very natural. A stone house breathes. And we have wood floors that if there's a crack in the floor, you can see the dirt through there. And it is not, we have no carpet, we have no polyester. And so it's very, it's a natural home. And then I thought, here is these children, what an opportunity, but I'm going to let it happen naturally too. When they want to come over, whenever they find an inkling to find out what's going on over here, that will be wonderful. But I'm not going to go pound on their door either.
No, well, you need to spend all the time managing your little piece of earth. So
yeah,
they have a place to go when they want to go.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, I've had some kids come over that they've eaten lots of pork in their whole life, but they've never touched a living pig. And they were like, oh, he's so bristly. Oh, look, oh, feel him. Oh, you know, and I go, he's friendly. He's smarter than my dogs.
Yeah,
he knows his name. He's smart. He knows commands. He sleeps in a pig house. He's got his own big house with a wind chime and a solar light on it, you know. And he decorates. He'll take the hay. I'll throw him some alfalfa or whatever we're putting out there. And he will take his mouth. He'll take a bite of it. And he'll go and he'll make a nest in his pig house or the chicken house. He likes to sleep in there too. And he redecorates. I was like, Harley's out there decorating, you know, and he'll spend all afternoon decorating, moving sticks and twigs around. And often I think, you know, I let him in my backyard. You know, I don't let him in my garden this time of the year, but certain times of the year, the pig and the chickens, they free range totally. Yeah. They free range now, but they really free range. And he gets to sleep under the fig tree and do what he does. And it's really interesting when you live with an animal, and he's a pet. We are not going to eat him. That you get to see a personality come out, and it really changes the whole dynamics of how we eat.
It totally changes it.
Totally.
And if you do decide to eat your animals, you hold them in the highest regard.
Right.
And the highest respect, and even when you slaughter them, a lot of the natives, you know, they do the sacred slaughter. There's a whole ceremony and process of gratefulness and respect, and that all the parts are used of the animal. Like, you don't kill an animal unless you use all the parts. Fur and the bones and everything has to have, you know, like a purpose. And then when you have the purpose for everything, then you can do, you know, the ceremonies and the slaughter.
Right.
So it's about, you know, our respect to everything.
We don't get rid of our chickens because they get old and quit laying. We have some old hens that they're not going to. They're our girlfriends. They're Wanda.
Yeah.
You know, it's Wanda. You know, and sometimes she's getting old and we have to put her up on the roof and take her down, you know, and we tend them, we take care of them and we feed them good, and I grow food for them. I cook for my chickens.
Well, I always recommend,
you know, I
do an urban farm project, I always have people get some old ladies, like old ones that were abused, like in commercial farming. Some of their beaks are cut off and stuff. Yeah. And then once they get used to taking care of them, a lot of them don't lay or haphazardly lay like once every 3 months. It gives them the experience on how to take care of them, and it gives those chickens a really awesome home and place to live. And then when they get the little babies, then the next year, you know, I have them get the little babies or whatever. And then
chickens are the gateway drug to homesteading.
They are. They're serious. And the thing is, like, people, once you get chickens, like, you just can't believe how much you love them all and how different they are.
I know. And each one has a different personality. We have a couple rescues, and we have a rescue black silky rooster. And he's just this little ball of fur, and he does this funny little dance every morning. He gets out of the coop, and he kicks his feet up, and he runs, and he kicks. And he was being picked on by some big roosters these people had, and they had put him in a cage to keep him safe. And we had gone over and we were just visiting with them, and they said, oh, our poor little silky rooster, do you want him? And I was really not interested in a rooster. And so Summer and I have to talk. We have to, you know, decide before we bring an animal in, you know, unless it's dire, you know, that something comes. We have a lot of rescue animals. And so we took his poor little beat up, little scrawny black fluffy rooster. And I did keep him contained, and I treated him and made sure so he wouldn't bring disease into my flock, and watched him and fed him and made sure he was okay. And you make sure they don't have mites or anything, And we put him in there, and they just accepted him right away. And I tell you, he is beautiful now. He's got a big, black, shiny tail, and he is just absolutely charming. He's so lovely. I mean, you never know what's going to come around the corner. What might be a problem for one person is a blessing for you.
Yeah.
And our girls, we love all of our girls. My favorite, actually, we have Wyandottes, and we have sex lynx and barred rock. We have an older barred rock. And we actually cry when our hens die.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It breaks our heart, and we bury them, and we have a ceremony. We place a stone on her, and we thank her for all of her hard work, and we just bawl like babies. It breaks our heart, because we eat their eggs every day.
Yeah.
We don't butcher.
But their eggs are the medicine, right? The eggs become a medicine because the chickens love you, and you have a relationship.
And I save their eggs, and I bake them, the shells, and I bake them in the oven, and I grind them up, and they go into my soil, into my garden for calcium uptake, along with some lime. And talk about preparing, because chicks will be coming out pretty soon.
Yep.
And don't go and get chicks without being prepared, and without having, like you were talking about, knowing how to take care of them, because then we get a flood of chickens or roosters being turned loose.
Yeah.
They'll turn them out, and then they're just fair play for feral dogs or coyotes or anything like that. Don't go and get those chicks.
Well, there are so many old lady chickens that need to be rescued, and they're such a good place to start. Spend a year with them and what they need, and if they need, because here you have to put lights on in the house because in the winter because it's freezing. So there are just nuances that they have to teach you, and that you as their steward have to take care of those needs and do it in the way that they need it as best that you can. But anyway,
we got into our chickens. I've had chickens my whole life, raised them. And when we used to grow barley when I was married, we grew barley for Coors. And so the combines would run day and night. And when we'd come in with the combines, the hens would see the combines coming in, because we always had a lot of bugs, and it would be full of grasshoppers. And oh my God, we'd come in and drop that front end of that combine and open the chicken house. And I love when chickens run; it's hysterically funny. And they would run, and they would cover that combine and just eat bugs. Eat bugs until it got dark. And then they'd go back and roost and gave us lots of good eggs, But so anyway, when we have a old-fashioned farm stores here, and they have chicks every year. And I went up to him and I said, okay, what do you do with the chicks you don't sell? He said, oh, Dad takes them to the ranch. And if they're still under lights, he gets the brooder pin going, and they're under lights, and they become our hens. And then if somebody wants a year-old hen or a hen that just started laying, we will sell them. We'll just pull them out of our flock. And so we had lost a couple hens. And so I said, do you have any layers? Yeah, Dad'll have them here tomorrow. And I went over and picked him up and paid him $3.50 for the chicken.
Free food. I mean, $3.50
perfectly fine, and
make it like
the flock and take his little page back, and
$3.50, and then that, if it's taken care of well, it will produce food for you for 4 years.
Oh yeah,
minimum.
Right. Plus the good feeling that we have of our girls, those are girls, we go out and we were, spend a lot of time with them because we were cleaning the chicken run yesterday of all the compost, and they're so cute, they just love to scratch and peck. And some of them, when you hand raise them, my favorite hen is a sex link. I tell you, they are laying little chickens. They're little red chickens, and we have gold and red sex links, and they start laying early. They lay consistent. They will lay a big egg. They're good eaters. They don't get mites. They don't get dirty butts. They are healthy. I am really impressed with the sex links, and the consciousness. I have one I call my little red, and she actually will come when I call her. And she'll get up there and she'll let me pet her. She, not like a cat or anything, but she'll let you touch her, and she's easy to catch. And that is about hand rearing them. Yeah. They're not raised massively. They get humanized. People forget that they get humanized, and they will lose a little of their natural fear, which makes them vulnerable.
Yeah.
To dogs or coons or different things that are kind of roaming around. See, we still have fox and.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, like, say you want to, if you do have chickens in your yard, I have to tell people this because of urban farming, you have to stop using fertilizers on your lawn and all this other stuff, because they'll naturally fertilize it, but you can't spray the spring any crap in your yard. No pesticides, no fertilizers, and you have to let the chickens do it. That's why you want to get some old lady chickens. And if you have bug problems, they'll eat, tons of bugs. They'll clean up the soil. They'll aerate your soil. So that could be the one thing that you do, is you get some chickens for your yard, get a little house, get them all set up, and then just work with them for the year and just see how that goes.
Well, you can even buy a decent little chicken. I'm not a favor of chicken tractors. Some people use them, but I think they're chicken prisons. They're small, and they put a lot of hens in one. Yeah. And I don't like, and they never get they're on the cold, and they're on metal. They're on grid, wire. And I just, there's one guy who's pretty popular on YouTube, and I just don't agree with the way he treats chickens. I think it's inhumane. But, have some consciousness and have some humanity.
Yeah. So, is there anything real quick that you'd like to say lastly before we close?
Well, we covered body, mind, and spirit. Yes.
Yes.
We've covered water, soil, trees, and green seeds. How do we relate? And there's some words that are kind of banded around, and there's sustainability, and there's ecology, and there's back to the green movement, and there's all this stuff. But these are just words that are naturally how we have always lived as humans on planet Earth. And then, as step one farther, are you a sister to Mother Earth? Are you a helper? Are you in a collaboration with what you're doing? And do you stop and take a minute just because you can, or you financially can buy it? Should you do it? This might be a no. And it's being able to take when nature, or you get that, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I'm not supposed to do that. Like, I might walk around the store with a piece of fruit in my hand, and all of a sudden I put it down. I don't even know why I put it down. I didn't want it. And it's about listening to my own body, and it's also listening to the bigger picture. What if it's saying, no, I don't want you to grow a tomato. I want you to grow eggplant. I want you to grow a rose bush. I want you to grow daisies, or I want you to grow milkweed for the butterflies. Are you going to be able to hear that? And just because you can do it, should you? One of the things we get into spring is we bite off way more than we can chew because we're anxious. We're tired of being inside, and we're eager for all this, and so it's about, doing small things well. Doing a small thing and doing it really well and taking your time with it. It takes time. Even our place, it's taken us 7 years, and we're still working on it.
But that's the thing. One of the things that one of my teachers said, in biodynamics is that, we're not doing this stuff, and we're not learning this work to have a 1-year farm where we go get everything. We're looking at 100 years down the road. And we're looking at the people that may not even be family members, who are we going to train in order to steward this, into the future?
Right. Right. It's a line, isn't it? It's like, from there to here to
But
us.
don't you think
So,
it's kind of a
um,
relief sometimes to be like, okay, it's long term. It's like, for me, it's like a
oh,
relief
yeah.
because I don't have to get it done all at once, and I can adapt and grow. And also, it makes me feel better about my life because, it gives me something more long term to focus in on.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I'm always anxious and looking forward to not just spring. I love the flowering of it, but I like July. I mean, it's the fruit is starting. It's getting gritty. I'm up at 5 in the morning because it's so hot here. I have to have everything taken care of, and I'm in by noon.
Right.
I'm in the house, and then I might be I'm cooking or doing a project, and I take a nap, and at 3:30 everybody gets fed again. They get fed in the morning. They get fed about 3:30. Then they let me know. I tell you, they're out there squawking and chirping.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
yes, where are you? It's 3:30. It's time to eat. No, 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 no. You know, and I really like that gritty heat, that full blown growth that's going on. It is just so human. It really is. And this is all preparation. And it's good. There's nothing wrong with preparation. And it's something we need to do because once you're there, this is the result of my preparation.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all the result of all my soil amendments and my digging and my, sprinkling this and doing that and learning and this worked and that didn't work. And getting out and doing it and just going and the smells of the summer.
The dirt. Sometimes, like I've been on farms where there's that really black moist soil, and you're planting, and just the smell of that soil. That rich soil. Right. It just makes.
Everybody even has a smell in their own house, and we use no commercial stuff, and people walk in and go, "Oh my God, your house smells so good." I'm like, "Well, it's good."
Yeah.
And the kids, my children, are like, "Oh, this smells like home. This smells like this smells right." And so it's important to even if you're weaning yourself off commercial products, if it's hard for you, maybe go just try a natural deodorant, try a more natural soap or shampoo. Stop using perfume and use an essential oil.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have to.
Are we done? Are we timed out?
Awesome. I've got all kinds of people calling me right now. All of a sudden.
Where are you?
I know. So can you give us a short prayer out, and then I will get this posted up on YouTube and get it out everywhere, and then people can watch it.
Okay. Grandfathers and grandmothers, Heavenly Father, let this work go forward. Let everyone who listened and who got a little bit of a taste of preparation for their garden this year, let it grow in them. And let this be good, I hope, to all my relations.
All my relations. All right, girl. I'll send it to you
later.
Then. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, let me get this going here.